Hey everyone, this is Black Mask 1, and you're watching your favorite one-stop shop for random games, Diamond Top Gaming. Today we're actually doing something that was requested by one of our viewers a long time ago. I mean, this is probably 2 months ago. And I would like to apologize for just now filming and creating it. Anyway, today I will be doing my personal corn deck for our little deck profiles. That way it can give you guys, some, I'm not going to say advice because I'm not saying mine's the best, but I think mine's the best. Out of all the wins, I've gotten the most. And for some odd reason, everyone can pick up my deck and win with it. So, but anyway, most corn decks revolve around you basically continuously throwing your own monsters, continuously throwing out monsters. Whereas blue plains, you kind of have to shift yours around, and you really need to keep your monsters alive. Corn creatures, if they die, you can just send out another one pretty fast, depending on the support you have. But anyway, you know what, I've stalled enough. Let's go ahead and begin. Now, with any corn deck, you've got to have at least one Husker Knight. Now, hold on, guys. Let me zoom that in. Sorry. Well, that's not working. Hold on. There we go. Well, there we go. Yeah, you need to at least run at least 2 Husker Knights. I would have 3, but me being a good guy, I actually gave my 3rd to Thug. That way he could have 2 in his own deck. So, he always said that he'd give it back to me if I wanted it. But I'm just one of those guys that will still let. Plus, we'll do, tag matches, and it works well with 2 players that are on a team that run corn, But anyway, let's go ahead and keep going. Now, I also run 2 Calspers. Now, this was probably the best support for corn cards. It's not only a very powerful card, but it also boosts adjacent corn creatures. So, like I said, that was probably the best support that has come out. But you can only get Calspur from the booster pack, for the glory booster packs. So now I'll run 1 Cornator. Now it's a good, its ability to, as soon as it's spawns, deal 4 damage. Deal damage to your opponent. I read that right? Yeah, to your opponent. So, and if I have a farmhouse in play, I can deal 5 damage. So, depending on when you get the card, draw the card, it's always, I normally draw it pretty late in the game. I don't know why, but it works out because by then I normally have my farmhouse, because I always try to save a spot on my land for, a farmhouse, because like I said, with corn cards, the more cornfields the better, and since it counts, the building counts as an extra corn landscape. Now next I run at least 1 Archer Dan. Now I've taken this card out multiple times and then I've put it back in. It's not very powerful, but its ability to destroy a target building is very good. But I decided to put this card back in whenever I actually lost to, I believe it was Riddler, because somehow he had gotten so many buildings out, and they were powerful buildings. Like, they're those dopey blue plains ones that boost his attack, boost the monster's defense. So I was having trouble, defeating it, and I wound up losing because of the fact that all of his buildings boosted their defense by so much. I don't know, after that I decided to add 1 just for safety, just in case. It's not a too terrible card, but for a 2 cost, it is kind of expensive. But Now, next, I just run one Husker champion. Now, this is also a very, since I run a decent amount of buildings, I can normally tap into his, ability. And for a 1, it's not bad, because if you play it on like a, with like a Blood Fortress, he'll get an extra 1 attack, and then, his ability will kick in, and then of course he'll have an extra 2. So in total, he'll have 4 attack. So I always try to at least run 1. I think Thug runs, I believe, 2 or 3. I'm not sure. I want to say 2 though, because he normally has, most of his deck has, a decent amount of buildings, so kind of like mine. So I run 1 Field Reaper. Now I would run more of this card because this is probably one of the best corn cards as well. Like literally right behind maybe Calsper and a Husker Knight. Simply because of his ability to steal another player's creature. That is probably the best ability. But he's a very weak monster, so that's the only bad side. He has a weak attack and a weak defense definitely. So for the 2 cost, but if you're really in a bind, to me that's one of it's a really good card. Now, I run 2 Tornado Wall of Fires. This is another good card if you have a Pied Piper. But even so, it's good to kind of just block your opponent. If you're trying to use if you're using Billy as your main hero, and you just kind of want to stall until your opponent runs out of cards. This is one of those good cards to do, because you can just floop it, and then your opponent has to attack it. And since whenever you floop it, it has 3 attack. That's and if you have, of course, Druid of the Cobble in the field, it'll have 4 attack. So there's a lot of possibilities for this one, but for the most part, I mainly just try to use it with Pied Piper, and I try to have a Druid of the Cobble in the field, but that actually brings us into naturally Pied Piper. I've already said enough, and I'll go ahead and pop out another 2. I always run 2 Druid of the Cobs as well. If I get really lucky, I'll draw all 3 on the same. If I get lucky, I'll draw, the Tornado Wall of Fire first, then a Druid of the Cob, and then a Pied Piper. But, it's best not to draw these on the first turn, because I actually did draw all 3 on the first turn, and by the time I got all 3 on the table, or on the field, I believe Pied Piper actually died, so it kind of ruined everything. But that's just what you have to be mindful of. Not everyone gets lucky on the draw. But then I run 2 Log Knights. Now this is also a fantastic card. Another good supporting creature. It's only a 1. It has at least 2 attack, which is, fair for a 1, creature, but it only has 2 defense. But its floop ability is what the main thing you want, because you can easily summon a farmhouse, which normally costs 2 for free. And then you still have 1 action. So that's why I think that's one of the best cards for a player that's focusing on the Husker Knights format, where you're just trying to have more and more cornfield landscapes. If I would try to buy, I've tried to purchase another farmhouse, because it comes from the Cake and Fiona booster pack. But I haven't actually found an online seller that just sells Card Wars or Card Wars singles that's decently priced. Like, I know that I tried to buy an extra Husker champion, but the guy wanted like $5, and then he wanted to charge me an extra 5 just to get it shipped. So, oh well. I make a deck with what I can. So next I run one Traveling Farmer. Now this is a good card to me for a late in the game, because if you're starting to lose and you need to once again wall someone, it has a good, has a good attack of 2 and it has an excellent defense of 12. And once it leaves the field, your opponent takes damage for however many cards is on the field. This card works very well with Yellow Lighthouse, which I'll show you later on. But this card works very well because if you place the Lighthouse in this zone and then just sit there and make your opponent, draw a card, by the time it gets destroyed, your opponent should, take a hefty amount of damage. But next, we have, once again, a great creature to wall is Wall of Ears, coincidentally. Like I said, it's a good card. It can get up to, at least in my deck, it can have up to 9 defense if I have all my creatures and that, my farmhouse that counts as an extra corn landscape. You can really tap into its walling potential. And plus, with an attack of 2, that's not bad at all. I mean, it has a good defense and decent attack. So, and this one I kind of just run just for the heck of it. I run a Corn Lord, King of the Corn. This is one of my favorite cards in the game. It's not that strong, even if you have, even if all your lanes are full of creatures. It only has an attack of 3. But, I mean, it has a defense of 7, so, I mean, I normally never draw it in a game. I just kind of have it in here just for a filler, just because I like it. But, anyway, next, I have a Patchy the Pumpkin. Now, this ability is very nice if you're in, like, I guess a duel match, if you're in a match with, let's say, a doubles match, because you can just damage everyone. So that's kind of what I like the most. But even if you're just, even if it's just you 1v1 someone, it's a good card to have, because you can at least do 1 damage to every monster on your opponent's side of the field. So, it's good to have at least 1. I know that Thug, I believe he really loves Patchy the Pumpkin. He has at least, I think, 2 or 3 up to this point, because I know he really likes that card. But anyway, next I have a Field Stalker, sorry. Now this is another good walling card, and it also ties into that Traveling Farmer. If you have those 2 on the field, this card will make your opponent draw a card, and you get to draw an extra one. So, once again, it's a good walling one if you're using Billy, and you can also use it with the Traveling Farmer. So, excuse me, I'm still trying to get over that cold, or I don't know, whatever I caught. Alright, so next we have Ethan All Fire. I only have 1 because, once again, I got this one from the For the Glory booster pack, or box I should say. This is probably one of the best cards if you, once again, another good support card. If you're running low on cards. I remember in one match I was getting terrible. I had a terrible hand, to start off with. I thought that it was decent, but I think this is the game that I had a Pied Piper, the Wall of Tornado, the Wall of Fire, and then I also had the Judah the Cop. And I was losing bad. I think I had, by the time I sent this thing out, Ethan All Fire, I had probably 14, health left. And so luckily though, I sent it out, and I was able to draw, because I think it was Riddler I was fighting. He defeated it in 1 turn because one of his monsters had like 5 attack. And luckily I got so lucky because I drew Husker Knight and Cowspur. So, Now another good support card is Sun King. Now this one counts as another corn landscape. Now I never can really let this one live for a very long time. So I'll normally try and pair it with a Celestial Castle, but even then, most people try to kill it. I don't know why, because it has 0 attack, but everyone always guns for it. I guess, well, it does count as an extra landscape, so. Now, this is probably one of the only 0 cards I have, but it's Quadri. Now, this card, once again, can tie in with Yellow Lighthouse and even tie in with the Field Stalker, because both of those make your opponent draw a card, and, this card deals 2 damage to your opponent if he has 4 or more cards, so it's good, to pair up with them. And then last, for my creatures, I have 2 Corn Templars. Now, I have this one simply to try and kind of just boost. Basically, it's a cheap, card to send out that it has decent health, and I can even heal it, if I really wanted to. So if I'm trying to stall, so it's a good card, to have for, once again, just stalling. And it's cheap, so that's kind of what I needed. I needed more, 1-point creatures, and that's why I, chose that one. And plus, I thought it looked cool. But anyway, next, this is the best building to me that I have, other than maybe Celestial Castle, but my farmhouse, because it counts as another cornfield landscape. I'm telling you, corn, everyone, that's the way to go. Pair this card up with Log Knight and summon it for free, and bam, that's like the easiest thing to do. And then just send out a Husker Knight the next turn and you got it made. But anyway, next, for the next building, I have Silo of Justice. Now, this card I've used very rarely, only on rare occasions, because this card to me is only good if you and your opponent are both walling each other, and you just need to damage your opponent. Excuse me. I've used this card a total of maybe, out of all the matches we played, and that's, golly, it's been a ton, I've probably only used this card 6 times maybe. One match I used it heavily simply because Riddler and me had, like I said, we had walled each other so much, because I was down, he had his full health, he had all 25 health, and I only had 1 health remaining, and I just started using this because none of us were touching each other until finally I destroyed one of Riddler's creatures, and I sent out a Husker Knight with a farmhouse, so naturally it had 5 attack, and after that kind of Riddler didn't really recover from that, because after that he tried to just destroy my Husker Knight, but none of his creatures would do more than 1 or 2 damage, so I used that card heavily to damage him, and finally, actually, I wound up winning that match too. But next, I run 1 Yellow Lighthouse. It's kind of self-explanatory. I've run quite a few buildings, so I don't really want to overuse the Yellow Lighthouse, because it also helps my opponent, and the odds of me getting, either the Traveling Farmer or even the Quadri is kind of slim, so that's why I only run 1 of it as well. So maybe I'll get lucky, I sometimes do, Next, I run 2 Celestial Castles. I use these, once again, if I'm trying to wall out my opponent. I use it especially with either, I use it, heavily with my Husker Knight, but I also use it with my Sun King. They kind of, to boost their defenses, that way they last longer on the field. But for the last buildings, I run 2 Blood Fortresses. I like to use, I always hope to draw these early in the game, because it's always good to have with my 1-point creatures, like for instance, my Corn's Templar. You can always throw down a Corn's Templar and then throw down a Blood Fortress, that way it can boost its attack. I don't really tend to use these later on in the game, because normally by then I have a few Celestial Castles and even my farmhouse in play, so normally I don't really like to use those toward the end of the game because just for an extra one attack, it's kind of a waste. But anyway, now for my spells, I first begin with two. Oh geez, his name is so long. Field of Nightmares. All right, guys. Golly, hold on, guys. Let me take a drink. Drinking my sun kiss. Sorry, I'm getting a dry throat. I run two Field of Nightmares simply because it's a very good card. Like I said, the tie-in with Quatereye and a Yellow Lighthouse. I know that Riddler absolutely hates this card because I always get him with it. Because that was also one of the reasons why I'd won that other match where I only had 1 HP because I threw down both of these back to back, and he had, I think at one point he had 7 cards, and then he tried to downgrade to 5. So, but nevertheless, the damage is still done. Excuse me. So, like I said, that's one of the best ones to have. I only mainly run 2, so I normally can pick it up, halfway through the game. But now this card, I used to run 2, but I drew both of them pretty much back to back, and my Wall of Fire was dead, so I couldn't even use it. But a creature's supposed to have 2 attack for every flute creature, so it was kind of worthless. So I wound up getting rid of it, but like I said, I kept 1 just for, pure luck maybe. I've only ever been able to use this card, I think twice my whole time playing this deck. So, the one time I did, it actually did help, but most of the time though, it just kind of sits in the deck. Now next, for my rainbow ones, I like to play excuse me, Duet. This is just a good card at 0, so just throw it down and it's free. Next, of course, I have a Green Candy. Now, once again, it's a good cheap card. You can heal or deal 1 damage, so I've used this many times to destroy Riddler's chicks or angry chicks, whatever those things are. So, good card. Now I run 2. Well, an empty coffin. Sorry guys, I couldn't think of that one. I thought it was like a zombified creature or something was the name of it. But hold on guys, I've got to get a drink of water. Sorry about that guys, but my throat was so dry. Anyway, this is one of the best rainbow spell cards. It's probably the best spell cards in the whole game. I mean, Unempty Coffin lets you play a 2 cost creature for free. I mean, that is absolutely killer for me because most of my cards are 2. So, and I could throw down two costing ones the same turn, so like I said, it's one of the best cards in the game. Now, I think you only get this card in the Finn and Jake pack, if I remember correctly. I think both Finn and Jake both had one. I just took both for me and added it into my deck. But yeah, it is the best card, and I cannot stress that enough. I've tried buying these online, but people sell them for in upwards of $8 or $9 on eBay and stuff. So you definitely, if you're trying to complete and get 30, well, you're gonna have to shell out quite a few change for it. And I also play Black Hole Pendants. This is just an easy, cheap card if I'm playing with an opponent that has like maybe a slime deck or whatever that has none of the same none of the same landscapes, all different landscapes. Now this one's a great if you're just normally I get this toward the end of the game almost every time. It's it's a good card. I mean, I like it. I'm not going to complain. But I used to run 2, but I took out 1 because just like that other flaming card, there was just no point. And then of course I have a Full Metal Racket. Now this card is this is like an upgraded version of Green Candy, but you can only get it from the booster, for the Glory Booster Pack. Once again, I only got one, and so naturally I added it to my deck because it's a very good card. It's 0 and you can just deal 2 damage to anyone, so naturally, who wouldn't want it? And then last but not least, I draw 2. What is this, pot of greed? Anyway, I run 2 corn scepters. Now, these cards are also very good if you're running a corn deck. I sometimes wonder why it's a rainbow, if it's really meant for a cornfield, a cornfield landscape, or, it's a corn deck. But, whatever. Anyway, though, you can deal, I can deal possibly up to 6 damage on someone, or on a creature, of course. You can't do it on your opponent. So, like I said, it's a good card. Normally, I only get to deal 4 or 5, but, hey, that's a ton of damage. That will normally kill any creature that I counter, so, good to have. Now, I'll run this last card only if I'm in a tag match, but I play Jinx. Now, basically, this is just a fun little card that I'll use, if I just choose 2 players and they have to show their cards, and if it's, not the same cost, then you discard it, so, it's kind of a goofy card because I remember some of our matches, me and Thug will be constantly yelling out like, why do you only have 2 cost creatures? So the odds of him not, throwing up a 2 cost one's kind of weird, but so this is really just targeted toward my opponent, but I don't really see the point since they probably will talk to each other as well, since we're sitting right across the room, or right across the table, I should say. So I just have it in there though, just because it's a fun card to have. But anyway, that is my deck, everyone. So anyway, of course, if you enjoyed the video, you can go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you'd like us to do more of these little deck profiles, I'll definitely go through and start showing them. I've been thinking about letting Riddler do his, and then maybe let Thug go ahead and show off his deck as well. And then of course we can go into our other decks, such as the Sandylands one, which I think is one of the best decks I've ever made, other than of course my personal corn deck, but it's still one of the best ones I've made. I think using the Sandylands one, you can beat any one of us with it, and that's saying something. But anyway, though, it's if you have any ideas for us, go ahead and leave them down below. If you have any suggestions, also do that as well. And if you want to see more of this, go ahead and like and subscribe and let us know if you'd like us to do more deck profiles. But anyway, as always, everyone, I'm Black Mask 1, and you have been watching Diamond Top Gaming.